Good evening, my faithful friends and hockey people out there in the world, in COVID land. This is Lee Elias coming to you live on Facebook. Once again, I always start my episodes right now in this way because it takes a few minutes for people to get on. I want to make sure people are on before I start talking about tonight's topic. It also makes it a less awkward start to the podcast when I record this. You guys know I restart about, 3 to 5 minutes in. Obviously, once you are seeing this, please, anyone, if you're seeing this, just comment that you can see it so I know that people are seeing it. There's always a lag. I've got a good topic tonight. You guys came through. I wasn't sure if I was going to come on tonight because I wasn't getting much responses today. That's not on you guys. Sometimes there's so much traffic and news on Facebook right now and Instagram and everything else that I think some of our posts are actually getting buried. Which is, again, that's not anyone's fault. It's just I don't think people are seeing it. So I don't know if people are reading it and seeing stuff. Caitlin Elizabeth right away with the Happy Wednesday. Caitlin, thank you so much. This is being shared on We Live Hockey, Hockey Wraparound, and Elimination Cafe, the private group for We Live Hockey, all simultaneously. For those of you jumping on, again, I cannot see who is watching or how many people are watching, so I always appreciate the interaction and the questions and the comments and anything you want to do to be part of this show. We'll have you know tonight I'm drinking coffee because I am a kindergarten teacher now, and the kids gave me a run for the money today. I love my children. I do. I love my children. But yes, I have a very interesting topic tonight. The kind of ongoing request was for the hockey business, and then I put out, what do you want to know about the hockey business? And I didn't get a lot of questions back. So I did get 3 that I'm going to tackle tonight, and as I said, one of them is going to become a main topic that's going to be focused on the podcast, and then I'll answer all of them. And then obviously any other hockey talk you want to have about anything going on in the NHL, we can do that as well. I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds before I kind of officially start this, but I want to thank all of you coming on. I can see a lot of people right now. Caitlin says if you need help with teaching, you know who to go to. Caitlin, I've become a pretty proficient substitute kindergarten teacher, I would say, working with my school district, actually. I don't know how many of you are actually dealing with this right now with your children, but yeah, our school district is working with us to try and kind of help us do stuff at home, and I've gotten a little bit of a rhythm with it, but I'm not quite used to it yet. I have to tell my business, entrepreneurial, authorship, creative side to shut up during the day, or else it'll overtake me and get me frustrated. And when I'm with my kids, I really try and be with my kids, which is all the time right now. It's a blessing in disguise. It really is. But, it sounds like I'm complaining. I'm not, okay? We're all in this together. I'm trying to make it work. I'm in a much better situation than others. Hey, Jeremy says you got new headphones. Actually, I'm not going to lie to you. I found these around the house. They're Captain America headphones. Seem fitting right now. I'll take it. It matches the shirt I'm wearing, so we all win. Someone typed, "Here we go," as we live hockey, which wasn't me, which means it's either Travis, myself, Caitlin, Ray Carcillo, or somebody else. Well, Ray's here, so it's not that. Ray says, "Huzzah!" Ray Carcillo, beautiful Los Angeles, California, quarantined to his beautiful new apartment. Chris Brown, question for you. Do you miss hockey as much as I do? Chris, that's a loaded question. Do I miss playing hockey? Do I miss working in hockey? Do I miss my younger years when I was playing, at a high level? All of it, yes, we all do. Okay, I think we got some people here now, so I'm going to start the podcast here. So I'm just going to stop for a second and kind of restart with more of a tonight's topic. So if you're watching me, you get to kind of see a little bit behind the scenes here. I can see also that the first the live stream just got announced on Facebook. So here we go. So Chris Brown, yeah, I miss watching that too, buddy. Okay, here we go. So tonight's topic is, what are the 5 things you need to make it to the pros? Okay, the 5 things. Now, I'll be forthright right away with all you. There's a lot of different types of lists. We use the 5 things. I'm using 5 things because it helps to simplify it. There's millions of things that go into making somebody an NHL player or a high top professional player. These are just kind of the 5 things that I've put together into a simple flow chart to kind of give you an idea. And again, you could break each one of these down individually if you really wanted to. But I was asked this question. Sean McGee wrote, if you had to make 100 skill checklist, how many would the average pro have to have and do efficiently? This includes mental, physical skills. Also, in what way would you treat a guy like Ovechkin differently than Orpik and have to be accepted by the locker room? So I'm going to kind of merge that. That's kind of the question that spawned the main topic for tonight that I'm going to tackle. So as always, if you're listening to this on a podcast, this is also being simulcast on Facebook Live. So I do get questions that come in as I'm recording, and I will read them on the air. It's meant to be a very much fireside chat hockey show to distract us all from what's going on in the world today. And Lord knows the longer this goes on, the more distractions we need. But I'm very proud of all of you and all of my friends and my family. And it seems like most of us are doing this well. Like, it's a tough time, but we're getting through it. So back to the main topic tonight. 5 things you have to make it to the professional ranks in hockey. Just to give you a little bit about my background, so I'm not just BSing you here. I have worked in semi to professional hockey at both the business, the coaching, and production level. I was an assistant coach in the UK's EPL, English Premier League, which is a professional league. I also was a GM and a head coach of a collegiate team in the United States. I've also worked behind the scenes with the NHL, New York Rangers. I'm not trying to give you the list of things I've done to brag. I'm just trying to tell you, I'm not just making this stuff up. This comes from my experiences with both players and coaches and GMs and people around the world. And I also want to tell you that my education on this is never ending. It continues. I am a student of the game. So the stuff that I'm telling you today, while I believe in it, it is always evolving. It is always getting changed. And that's really one of the big keys to being in my position is you don't stop learning. There's not something you get that you just get it. That's what all the best coaches I've ever met say is that you get evolved. I think Scotty Bowman or Lindy Ruff, 2 very famous NHL coaches, said, you know how good a coach is not by how much they've won, but how much they've been fired and rehired. And I thought that was a funny quote. Although, Bowman has lots of cups. Anyway, we're getting back to it here. More people are coming on. Happy you guys are here. Let's start with a few of the top 5. Okay, so some of these are more straightforward and they're obvious. Some of them are a little bit more, they need to be broken down. So number 1 on here is skating. All right. If you can't skate, you can't play hockey, right? And while there are different levels to skating, you don't need to be the best skater in the world to make the NHL, but you need to be pretty proficient at it. So that's the number 1 skill. And there's been so many solutions to this between off-ice training, plyometric training, training with, power skating. There's so many power skating clinics out there. These are all beneficial. So whether you're a young player or an older player, obviously skating and your ability to become a good skater is something that really will stick out in terms of you trying to make it to the next level. Now, this is actually one of the 5 things that I was very proficient at a young age. I could always skate. I was very good at it. It was probably the gift that I was given, if you will, within these 5 skill sets. Now, I didn't play in the NHL because I didn't have all 5 of these things, all right? And I think if you have all 5 of these things and they click well together, you can make it. There are people that have these 5 things and still don't make it. So skating is obviously the obvious and very most important one. If it's something you are not awesome at or something a player that you know is not awesome at, that's something they should definitely focus on to get to the next level. So number 1, skating. I'm not going to spend too much time on that one because it's kind of obvious. Now number 2 is a few things I kind of put together, but they do all fall into one arc, if you will, and it's puck work. So that's stick handling, shooting, and passing, right? Anything where the puck is on your stick. Okay, now, again, there are varied levels to this as well, okay? Keeping in mind, like I said, there's 3 things in there. Stick handling is one. Puck handling is one big one, right? I've met people that are some of the best stick handlers I've ever seen in the world, right, that don't make the show because it's just one skill set, right? Again, most NHL players are wizards with the puck. Even the worst NHL player is better than I will ever be at shooting, passing, and puck handling, okay? Someone once asked me to describe NHL players, how good they are at hockey, and it was a really intriguing question because how do you answer that? And I came up with this answer, and it seemed to work. But I said, if you ever go to the circus and you see the trapeze artists, right, and you see how they're jumping and doing these impossible things, right, or Cirque du Soleil, and you see the not ballerinas, but whatever the performers, they can do these unbelievable things that you don't think are humanly possible. That's how good NHL players are at hockey. That's how good they are at stick handling and puck handling. All right, go watch Connor McDavid highlights and warm-ups if you don't believe me, or TJ Oshie or something like that. You know what I mean? So stick handling is an important one. And then passing and shooting also. I think about some of the players I knew. One of the player that I knew with the hardest shot that I've ever seen in person did not play in the NHL. He made the AHL, but he didn't make the NHL. It shows you that how having a great shot or the best shot on your team is just not enough sometimes. And then passing, right? This was something else that I was pretty proficient in, but it came a lot later in my playing time. When I started playing, they used to call me Stonehands. It's a little inside information. Hopefully that doesn't stick. Excuse me. But passing is another one that also has a lot to do with vision on the ice. It's always been one of the most underrated skills in terms of people who don't know the game that well, or people in the game too. Sometimes there's a reason why assists count as much as goals in terms of points. All right, it's because they're just as important. A stat I love throwing out, I love it, is that if Wayne Gretzky never scored a goal in his NHL career, he would still be number one all time in points because of his assist production. All right, and the proof that I have that people don't spend enough time on assists is Ron Francis, who is now the GM of the Seattle franchise, was captain of the Carolina Hurricanes, and he was also with the Whalers for a long time, and I believe Pittsburgh when they won their cups. He's a top 5 assist guy in the NHL in history. Like, that's what he was known for, but people don't know his name, which I thought was crazy. All right, I mean, some people do, but I'm saying by and large, Ron Francis, Wayne Gretzky, Ron Francis, Mark Messier, Ron Francis, Jaromir Jagr, Ron Francis, Gordie Howe. I could go on. There's just, for some reason, there's not the same onus on those two names, and there should be. He deserves that. So passing, stick handling, shooting, puck work is number 2. So number 1 is skating, number 2 is puck work. Now, 3 is the physicality side of the game. Some players have control over this, some players don't. And, this is checking and your ability to kind of pin guys and create gaps and understand that side of the ice. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. This is where a size advantage plays in, all right? And depending on the era you played hockey, now I played a lot in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, which was known as the Neanderthal era, where every player was 6'5", 220, and me at 5'11", 190 when I played to 200, 210 was just not big enough to compete with that. Now, the game has changed quite a bit today. Today, it's not about 6'5", 220. It's about 6'3", and 190 to 200. It's a different athlete. It's funny because when I was growing up and I saw NHL players, these just big, hulking individuals. I remember seeing Eric Lindros one time, and this man is a giant. I mean, it's just Jack and the Beanstalk, massive human being. You can completely see how he destroyed people, right? And the athlete I see today, when I go to the All-Star game or the awards, it does not look like Eric Lindros. They're tall. Every NHL player I meet is tall. If you guys see our pictures from those things, you can see they're all taller than me. Again, I'm about 5'10", 5'11". These guys are all 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", but very slender and very fit, okay? It's just not this hulking size anymore. So players and their ability to be big changes, right? Excuse me, the onus on the what's that word I'm looking for where it comes through your body? That starts with a G, I think. But genetics, right? The genetics of a human being are different, and you have very little control over that. But you do have control of your output, your effort. So anyway, checking and physicality, you have to be, willing to take hits in this game. You have to be willing to give hits in this game. And then again, genetically, you have to be able to last. All right. Now, I've had multiple broken bones. I've had surgeries. I've had concussions when concussions were not a major thing. And among other things. Okay. I'm not complaining. That's what you sign up for when you play hockey. But I'm not convinced my body would have lasted had I been playing at the top level. All right. And it's something that, now looking back, it's easy to say. When I was 25, it wasn't. All right. But, to have an NHL career, you have to be able to withstand a certain amount of punishment on your body. Again, some of that's genetics, some of that's staying fit, some of that's luck, okay? I mean, some of it is, you know what I mean? So depending on who you are and depending on your ability to kind of take pain as well, it's a big part of it, all right? And again, I have met players and I know players that are not able to step up at number 3, which is physicality, for whether it's genetic or mental in terms of their ability to do it. You have to be willing to take that amount of pain to do it. And again, even though I don't agree with the prioritization of this, the athletes in the NHL are paid handsomely to do this, and they will sacrifice their body. It's not just the NHL; it's any professional league, right? So number 1, skating. Number 2, puck work. Number 3, physicality. Number 4 is the one that is most lacking in the hockey world. So again, skating can be worked on. Stick handling, passing, shooting can be worked on. These are muscle memory skills. These are things that if you put in the time, you're going to come out the other end better, okay? Physicality, within what you can control, you can get better, right? But again, a little bit out of your control. This next one, number 4, is, again, it's something that I believe is in your control, but I also think it's something that can be a gift, and it's game sense, okay? And this is the biggest, in my opinion, this is actually the biggest differentiator between the professional ranks. What I mean by that is the NHL, AHL, ECHL, SPHL, so forth and so on, right? And college and juniors play into this as well. Your ability, or a player's ability, to really see the ice and understand the game is immense, okay? Now, adversely, the opposite of this is also just as painful. So there's one where you have a guy with all the skill sets that can't see the game, which is a tragedy. There's also the opposite, which is someone who can see the game but doesn't have the skill sets. They tend to become coaches, okay? One of the funny things about game sense is, again, this is your ability to be aware on the ice, to see the ice. Wayne Gretzky had the best game sense in history. Mario Lemieux probably right there with him, to be fair. All right? But your ability to kind of play the chess match, right? To see the ice, to predict what's going to happen, and above all, to be creative. One of the things at the professional level I don't think people realize is that it's not like the youth hockey you play, right? Like, these guys already have these skill sets. They're being paid to use them. It's how they apply them now at the NHL level that's really the important thing, right? And that's something I don't think people think about. Let's take a quick swig of water here. Again, I got to give you a play-by-play, because if you're listening to the podcast, it just sounds like somebody spills water. So when you apply this to the NHL level, you have these athletes come in. Keeping in mind a few things when you're looking at an NHL roster. There's maybe 2 to 3 players on an NHL roster that are not movable. They're valuable beyond being traded or let go. Most players on an NHL roster are very tradable. A lot of people don't like to hear that, but they are. And finding that right mix within that's why so many players move and things happen. Game sense is a big part of this. And game sense can mean many things. It can be what you're doing with your line when you're on the ice. It can be understanding your role when you're on the 3rd and 4th line and executing that role and not complaining that you're not on the first line, which does happen from time to time. All right. It's also your ability to kind of break down things like systems and plays. And again, we can get into systems on another chat if you guys really want to. That gets deep into it. But, are you able to go from a 2-1-2 system to a diamond trap like that and know what that is? Or you have the education within the game to understand the different forechecks, the different patterns, the different traps, how to beat them, how to move forward. And then also being creative. And this is a big one at the pro level, and I really learned this when I was coaching in England. We would encourage our players to be creative within the system that we were playing, right? We didn't want our players to feel like just soldiers, that they have to do everything perfectly, because hockey's not a perfect game. It's an imperfect game. The whole game is built off of taking advantage of someone else's mistakes, right? You have to be an opportunist to play this game. So we told our players, be creative, and that really opened them up to have a better experience on the ice and, to learn from it. Again, we don't want our players playing in fear all the time. Some coaches like that. I wasn't like that. We wanted them to make a mistake, understand they made a mistake, and not make the mistake again. All right, but that's what practice is for, right? This also goes into another question. I'm just going to pop it in because it fits. But Ryan Edward Sheehy asked, how are players... I'm sorry, wrong question. This was the Ovechkin versus Orpik one. Sorry, same question. Apologies. Forget I said that. The second half of the question asked of me was, how would you treat a guy like Ovechkin differently than Orpik and have it accepted by the locker room? The best thing that ever happened to Alex Ovechkin was when Barry Trotz came in and said, be creative. And you could tell him, enjoy the game. I don't need you to be a defensive forward. That's not what you are, Alex Ovechkin. You're not going to be a defensive forward. You are the greatest goal scorer in the history of the NHL. Act like it. Go out there and score. You saw a different Ovechkin the year they won the cup than any other year, right? They opened him up. And that was great coaching. It was, you have the IQ to be an offenseman, the best offenseman in the game. I want you to do that. I'm going to surround you by players that can play defense. Sometimes I'm going to surround you by players that are going to complement your greatest skill. That's game sense. And then Ovechkin knows my job's to score goals. Okay, among other things. I'm being very broad here. But I hope that makes sense with game sense. There's a lot we could go into. Again, feel free to ask questions about game sense, about any of this stuff as I'm talking here. I'm going to get to the fifth one, and then I'm going to start reading your comments. The fifth one Again, going through them. Number 1 is skating. Number 2 is stick handling, puck work, right? Number 3 is the physicality side of the game. Number 4 is game sense. And number 5 is the mindset or the mentality. All right. And this is a big, big one that unfortunately no analytics, statistics, sabermetrics, all the things we track can tell, right? You can't tell what type of a person someone is by how many points they score, time on ice. The stats don't tell that. And this is that kind of Moneyball discussion, right? Where you talk about the other things that make someone good, and their mentality. So people go, well, do they work hard? Look, everyone that makes the NHL probably worked pretty hard to get there. All right. That's a misconception. There are NHL players that don't work as hard as other NHL players. Okay. But they all work hard. Okay. You don't get there just by happenstance. You have to put the time in, the effort in. And some of these guys are gifted, but let's look at the best. Connor McDavid was just voted the best player by the NHLPA Players Association, right? He came into the league at 18. He's the best player in the league, only a few years in. You're not going to tell me he didn't work his butt off those first 18 years to make it to the NHL to accomplish his dream. Sidney Crosby is known as one of the hardest working people in the game. All right? You don't get to the top without working your butt off, no matter how gifted you are, okay? It just doesn't work that way. So mentality plays a lot into this and mindset. Now, this also goes deeper than just working hard, and that's what I was trying to say, right? They all work hard. It comes down to your resolve. How do you get back up? How do you hold yourself in the locker room, right? How does your internal dialogue, the things that you're telling yourself, affect your game, right? There's a lot of different things. And how do you treat other people? Are you a leader? Are you a leader by example? Do you speak a lot? And this is something that I've really focused on in my career. So again, for those of you who don't know what I do with teams now, is I'm a team builder, right? So teams will bring me in to create a team bond. So I essentially work mostly with mindset and mentality now, is getting a group of people together to accomplish a common goal, right? Which is not as easy as you'd think. Getting a team bonded is actually pretty easy. Keeping them bonded is not. And anybody out there who works in any team environment, business, doesn't matter, business or sports, again, you can get anybody motivated towards a common goal. It's can you keep them motivated when things happen? And things do happen. A hockey season is a very living thing. Okay, and no 2 seasons are the same, and no 2 teams are the same. I said this before. You could have a team of 22 people one year, have the exact same 22 people next year. It's a different team, and you have to look at it like that. It doesn't matter how well you know these people, right? You have to find those ways to kind of bring them together. And when it comes to mindset and mentality, you want the right people, and this goes right back to Herb Brooks in Miracle in 1980. You want the right people, not the best ones, right? All-star teams tend to fail because they don't have any coercion. They don't have any mindset together. It's just lots of skill, right? If you look at the teams that have won recently, the Washington Nationals, oldest team in the MLB, they were clearly bonded. The St. Louis Blues, clearly bonded. Okay, I could keep going down the list here. I could do Super Bowls. I could do it all, right? No one's ever won and succeeded on a team where they hated everybody. It just doesn't happen, okay? Or at least a team where they didn't respect everybody. I could say it like that, all right? But the mindset, mentality of a player, the resolve. Look, if you're 18 years old, 17 years old, I mean, you might be mature for your age, but it's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, how many of you out there were 18 and had it all together, right? I mean, I'm 36. I barely have it all together. You know what I'm saying? You never really get it all together. But my point is like, there's people that are stronger in this regard than others. And when you're talking about a professional athlete, you have to have certain mental aspects. You have to have resolve, toughness. You have to be able to face adversity and get up over and over and over again without failure, right? Like, you just can't stop. I mean, there's a great story I heard about Jordan Binnington, the goaltender for St. Louis Blues, that and forgive me if some of the stats on this are wrong, but the essence of it was that he was going to be moved down, I think, from the AHL to the ECHL. And, so if I told you that, okay, you're going to be sent down, most people just think players go, oh, okay. I mean, if that's what he legit went to his GM and said, you're not sending me down. I'm staying here and I'm going to play. I mean, he just forced the issue, and they kept him. And then he got called up to the Blues, and you know the rest of the story. Or else, what are you doing on a We Love Hockey chat? But, that's what I'm talking about. The guts to say to his GM, no, you're not sending me down. All right. Now the GM still could have sent him down, but he saw something. He saw something and kept him. Right. So, these human beings, and this is just not just hockey. This is any professional athlete, male, female, doesn't matter. The resolve, the level of aptitude to keep going is above and beyond that of I don't want to say a normal person. That wouldn't be fair. But just it's a professional level. How about that, right? Just like the other 5 things. So again, feel free to start asking questions. I'm going to start answering them now. But number 1 is skating. Number 2 is puck work. Number 3, physicality. Number 4, game sense. Number 5, mentality. Right? You need those 5 things. You have to have all 5 to make the show. All right. And even if you have all 5 of these things, you still might not make it. Things happen. You might break your leg or tear your shoulder your senior year of high school. I know someone who that happened to, right? You just don't know, okay? So here's the other thing, too. If you don't make it, I have to say this just in case there's any young people listening that are trying to make it. If you don't make it, I'm not telling you not to strive for your dream. You should absolutely strive for your dream, but understand that the lessons you learn along the way are invaluable and that you can apply those skill sets to anything. I've applied, I get asked this a lot because, I've created businesses, I've written books. How do I do that? I've just applied my hockey mentality to doing things. When I write a book, when I'm working on my business, I'm just using the same skill sets. I'm just applying them to business or writing instead of the ice, right? Doesn't mean I don't love the ice still. But those are the things. Those are the 5 things. And again, you could break each one of those down. You could turn this into 100 things if you really wanted to. I just know that from the players I've worked with, you can usually tell one of these things is missing. Again, like I'm just looking at this, I'm thinking of a player now. I know a guy who had skating, stick handling, and the mindset, but didn't have the physicality or the game sense. And that person only went so far. And they're probably not going to go much farther, unfortunately, unless they're able to find a way to open up their brain to these other things, right? So, it comes and goes. Some players have more than the other. There are great skaters that have the other 4 things on a different level. There's people with a great mentality. Like a player like Justin Williams is a great example, who was captain of the Carolina Hurricanes. He's a player now. Also was on the LA Kings, won the Conn Smythe when they won the first Stanley Cup in 2012, I believe. They know him as Mr. Game 7. He's an enigma to me. He's a great hockey player, but really during this regular season, he's just kind of an okay average player. But in the postseason, this guy is invincible. He's just unbelievable in the postseason. When this guy gets to playoff games, he's a different player. That's that mentality side of it. Okay, something clicks in his brain when it's on the line that he's going to become the best player in the league. And I think when it comes to postseason play, he might be. So those are the 5 things. Those are the 5 things. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I'm going to look at some of the comments now. Then I have 2 more quick questions that I got, and then I'm going to jump off tonight. So let's go. Jeff Dwyer saying a lot. Jeff Dwyer, going to the Phantoms practices. That Phantoms is the team I worked for in the United Kingdom. Jeff Dwyer probably served in the United States Air Force. Lives in Northern Carolina now. Is a huge fan of the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Rangers. You can ask him about that on another chat. But he was stationed in England at the same time I was there coaching, so that's how he knows me. Going to the Phantoms practices and watching you with the team, and then also getting out there with them, I'd see that all the time. Jeff, are you talking about the team building stuff, I'm guessing? So Jeff was around when I did a lot of team building with that professional team to gel them together. We ended up winning the championship in 2015 together. I always say this, I was honored to be a part of the team, and we won together. In fact, one of the championship photos in my office right now is of that team. Jeremy Corporon? Jeremy, tell me if I'm saying your name right below. Jeremy Corporon. How would you apply this list towards a goaltender? So that's a great question and a fair one. I'm obviously talking about mostly skaters right now. I think mindset, game sense, and physicality definitely apply to goaltenders. And then instead of skating and stick handling, that would probably become goaltending things like, pad work and up downs and ability to know your crease. And I'm not a goaltender, so that's why I haven't spoken about this. I don't want to act like I know that position better than skating. I used to go to goaltending courses. Actually, this is a funny story. When I was in college, I would go to goalie clinics, not player clinics, but goalie clinics, so I could learn how goalies thought. Under the understanding that if I could figure out how a goalie thought, I'd probably score more goals, and that actually ended up being true. There's a lot that goes into being a goaltender, but I think it's just the basic skills of skating and puck work apply to goalies however they apply, and then physicality, game sense, and mentality are just as important. I mean, reaction time is obviously a big one. Again, that's another kind of genetic gift from God type thing that you can work on. Great question, though. Caitlin Elizabeth, We Live Hockey team member and a really lovely person, I'll tell you that, says, as we say in softball, never let your parents carry your bag. You don't know who's watching you. Don't ever let yourself seem like a slacker ever. It's a great point. I mean, every sport I know, it's keep your head up. All right, body language is massive. Body language is a massive part of the game. If you're on the bench with your head down, it's over. Look, one of my quotes that I use a lot is, I am not a fan of the word hope when it comes to sports and athletes. Okay, I'm not against hope. I hope this crisis ends. All right, I do. All right, I hope for that day, but I don't live waiting for that day. Right, I live for today. All right, it'll end when it ends. Okay, but when it comes to sports, hope is death to me. If you're hoping for something in a game, I'll give you a great example. It's 5 minutes left in the third period. You're down by a goal or it's tied. You're hoping for the next goal to be for your team. I hate that because it means you're out of control. It means you're not in control of the game. All right. Hope is death to an athlete. All right. It's death to a team. Don't hope. Go out there and make the goal happen. This goes back to the mentality thing. It's when there's 5 minutes left in the game. You're not sitting on the bench just, I really hope we win. No, you're going out there. You're making a difference, and you're going to die trying. Right, that was the difference between the Boston Bruins in Game 7 and St. Louis Blues last year in the Cup final. If you go back and watch Game 7, you can tell the Blues would have died to win that game, and the Bruins were just a little bit short of that, because I don't want to take anything away from the Bruins. But one of those teams was more desperate to win. And you could see the Bruins hoping towards the end of the game. But yeah, head up, strong acumen. You play the game till it's over. Period. The score doesn't really matter till the buzzer hits zero, guys. It just doesn't matter. It's just a tally, right? I always said you focus on what you can control. You don't look at the other teams. You don't look at the score. It takes care of itself. Okay. Mark Pollard, all the way from Australia, down under. He says, "Oh hey, hi Mark." I'm not going to do my Australian accent. Mark, what is it? Providence is over there. Forgive me for not knowing that. But what part of? I think you're in the southeast of Australia or the eastern side of Australia. Let me know. I'm not sure. And it's probably early fall there, right? It's early fall there down under. Jeff Dwyer, again, is a former teammate of Lee. So Jeff and I also played on the U.S. Air Force team and the Royal Air Force team together. And a goalie, the one thing that he had always told me is to keep your mind open and always learn something every practice. Yeah, I love practice. Practice was one of my favorite things as I got older, because you can learn, you can try things, and games are great. I love games. I love competing, but practice is your chance to screw up with no repercussions. So I used to love practicing. I used to love training, and I just never wanted to be, contrary to what some people might believe, a know-it-all. Right? I love learning. All right. Someone once asked me, "What's the pinnacle of life?" I said, "Death," because you can hopefully learn until you die. Right? Let's keep going here. Let's see, Jeff Dwyer. Or when you are the backup, be the best goalie at practice, because you never know when they're going to call you in. That's another great example. Or if you're an emergency backup, right? Backup goalies are unsung heroes of the NHL, because they do a job that's very important. Now, it's something people might not know. When a goalie comes out for warm-ups, the players are told to hit the starting goaltender in the pads or get him warmed up. And then the backup goalie is the one who's got to take all the shots that go in the net. They're trying to score on this guy. When I was coaching, I used to love it here's a little trade secret for you. I used to scout goaltenders before games for my team. And I would love it because most of the teams we'd play against would shoot on their starting goaltender to score. And you're showing me every weak spot that goalie has in the 5 minutes of warm-ups. And I would go in the locker room and I'd write on the board, slow glove hand, weak side to side. I could just tell. If you're on a team and you have a goalie, you should be hitting that goalie in the pads. If they're starting, or if you only have one goalie for men's league, adult league, hit him in the pads. That's what they want. Warm him up. Don't show the other team where to shoot the puck. If you ever see me play men's league, for a minute, I'll stand on the blue line, just watch the other goalie. I'm getting older. I got to get every advantage I can get. Okay? Let's keep going here. Ray, practice? We're talking about practice. Practice? We sitting here. I'm supposed to be franchise podcaster. We talk about practice. Not a game. Not a game. Practice. For those of you around in the early 2000s, you'll know I'm doing Allen Iverson of the 76ers. Great man. had the mindset, had the toughness to play professional basketball. But this is a hockey show. We're going to keep it on hockey show. Okay, Caitlin says Ray stole my comment, so she was thinking that too. The other one's playoffs. Who doesn't love that one? Colts. All right, we're going to keep going here. Feel free to keep talking, commenting below. I appreciate all of you that are on here listening, or if you are listening to this on playback or a podcast, really appreciate you jumping on. I really hope this is giving you a distraction from everything going on in the world right now. Again, it's a distraction for me. I mean, I get to escape it all for an hour. Although, again, we're doing well here. I'm fortunate. I get to spend more time with my kids, which I love. I love it when they're good, which is most of the time, to be fair. Okay. Just potty training during this is not fun. Anyway, let's keep going here. Jeffrey. Okay, he's telling me how to say his last name now. Think of it as like Corporal or Ren. Corp or Ren. Oh, Corporan. You're doing it phonetically. Jeremy Corporan. Jeremy, tell me if I'm saying that right. Jeremy Corporan. I think I got it right. Okay, we'll keep going. One of the hardest things about doing podcasting and live feeds is you get some names sometimes. You really want to get them right, but you butcher them, and you have to say that. Oh, if I butcher your name, I'm sorry. So I am, but Jeremy Corporan. I think I got it down to probably a little more emphasis on those syllables than I need. Okay. Next question was from Ryan Edward Shee. He says, how are players' salaries and contracts offers determined? It's a good question. So it depends on a lot of different things. So a lot of that's done by the GM and the players' agents. They negotiate what they think the player's worth, and then they figure out how long it's going to be worth, and then obviously there's signing bonuses and ways to get out of the salary cap, so forth and so on. If those two parties cannot agree on a player's worth to the team, it goes to something called arbitration. Okay, and what arbitration is that the player and the GM agree that a judge, essentially, an arbitrator, not like a legal judge, it's an arbitrator, all right, is going to decide how much that player is worth. So when a player takes a team to arbitration, typically the player wins arbitration. That's why a lot of teams don't like to do that. It doesn't always happen, but the arbitrator says this player is worth this much, and they review everything about that player, their career, their point totals, and they just kind of let a third party decide. And then it's a take it or leave it type thing for the players and the agents and the team. Right? The team doesn't have to offer the contract. Most of the stuff's done in good faith. I love it when teams actually work out contracts in a good way, but players get older, or player thinks they're worth more than they're worth. This can get pretty dicey. The other thing too is that, when you talk about contracts, one of the cool things historically about contracts that people don't realize is that, there are players that set the bar. For example, when Gretzky was playing, whatever he was paid that's what the best player in the NHL was getting paid. That's one of the reasons the trade of him from Edmonton happened to Los Angeles. Because it raised his salary, and he actually said, I've read books about this, that he was under pressure, not from the players, but himself, that he's the best player in the world, and he wasn't getting paid that much. Really, when you look at today's salaries, he wasn't getting paid that much in the late 80s by Edmonton, and he knew if he went to LA, his salary would skyrocket, and it would really help the players in the league. And then also him going to Los Angeles and eventually St. Louis and New York would help grow the game. You wouldn't have the modern NHL if Gretzky didn't get traded. That's probably a great topic for another night. We should do that because that trade is so in-depth in how it happened and what it did for hockey. It deserves to be spoken about. There's a great book called Gretzky's Tears. I'm serious. If you want to read about it, or you can watch the documentary A Day That Changed the Game. About his trade. If you want to hear about that topic on another podcast, let me know or just suggest it when I put up the topics next week. But yeah, lots go into players' salaries and contract offers, and GMs are always trying to find ways to kind of undermine the CBA or the salary cap. And Devils got fined for that one for circumvention a few years back. Excuse me. I'm okay, I promise. But good question, Ryan. So, and Andrew Williams says, how can one get to work in the financial side of things? Always thought of working in a sports field. I'll just make this more generic about working in sports. And I'll tell you some quick stories. One of the things about trying to get a job in sports is to look for jobs in sports. A lot of people just think I can never do that. They don't take that time to look, right? If you look, there's a lot more sports jobs out there than you think. Number two, and then you gotta be willing to take the hit and say, it might not be a NHL job. First off, you might have to work in a minor league, and they're always looking to people. Now, here's a couple of trade secrets. Minor league GMs and owners are not NHL GMs and owners. They are not as busy as you think. All right. You'd be surprised how easily you can get their emails or a team email just by going to their website. Just start sending emails, picking up the phone. Hey, I'm looking for a job, and Andrew, for financial side, do you need an accountant? Do you need someone to do your finances? I'm looking for that. There's also a great website called Teamwork. Just Google. I don't want to do the wrong website, but I think it's teamwork.com. But just Google Teamwork sports jobs. You'll find it right away. Here's a quick story for you. My job at the NHL. So I actually applied to work at the NHL right after college as a logger, which is the lowest position you could really get in broadcast journalism. But that was the starting point. That's where I was at. That's the expertise I had at the time. And I remember I went in for an interview with the NHL, and I really nailed the interview, at least I thought I did. And I was ready to get this call back, and I didn't get the job. This is the first time I tried to get in the NHL. And I was devastated. I remember I was devastated. I didn't understand at the time what was it that I didn't have that, with not enough passion. Was it not, I'm a very, very energetic 21, 22-year-old, probably 23-year-old at this time. All right, I was pissed. I didn't understand. But as I talked about earlier in the episode, mindset, resolve, I didn't let that stop me. Right, I kept looking for other jobs in sports. So I started working at NBC Sports. Then I got NHL on NBC. Then I was working at the NFL on NBC. And I was working as a producer at A&E. And another job opportunity came up at the NHL. Right, now how did that job opportunity come up? I was working at an ice rink, and I was in the office, and I saw a name and an email. Okay, and all I saw in the email was the email said, the name of the person at NHL.com. No description. So I wrote down the email, no idea what this person did. Wrote down this email, and I emailed them. I said, my name is Lee. Look, I'm looking for opportunities at the NHL. If you know of anything, again, this is around 2005, 6. Okay, probably maybe 2007. Okay, 2006, 2007. Okay, and the internet is not what it is today at that time. So the internet's there and it's very much alive. Okay, but it's not to the level of access that it is today. So you can just go on and find jobs at that time. I emailed that person, no idea who he was. And I remember he emailed me back and he said, hey, Lee, really appreciate you reaching out. Why don't you come over to the city, New York City, and we'll go out to lunch. I couldn't believe it. So I went out to lunch. Andrew, funny enough, he worked in the financial side of things, and he put me in contact with a couple people and got me an interview. And that interview was for the programming coordinator at the NHL Network, which was launching at the NHL at that time in America. And long story short, I got the job. I didn't realize, and I'm not bragging here, I didn't realize till after I got the job that over 1,500 people applied. So I felt great when I realized that. And then I applied that to my other job that I didn't get before, which was a lot of people probably apply for this, and it's probably not easy for these people to make decisions, right? But this was me a few years later, a few years more mature, a lot more experience in production and broadcast. I got the job. Right? And I was ecstatic. And I'll tell you this too. I talked about this last week. I love the work I did at the NHL. I was honored to work at the NHL. Every day I will say that. Same thing with the New York Rangers. I've worked at some of the top places in hockey history. Okay, but people make the job. All right, and I was always surprised how many people at the NHL didn't really care that much for hockey. There were some people that were incredibly passionate. I can remember them. Okay. And I loved them, and I loved working with them. But there were some people that it was just a job to them. If you can believe that, it was just a job to them. They didn't really care that it was the National Hockey League. And I learned a lot from that. And a lot of what I'm doing today was takeaways from that experience. It's not what you do, it's who you do it with. Ray's listening to this probably still right now. I've always talked to him about, there are days I'd rather be a garbage man with you and just hang out all day than be a slave, driven to a slavery. And not that was happening, at some of these other jobs. That's obviously a metaphor. Okay. I don't want any problems with that. All right. But it's who you work with, not what you do. And then I just paved my own way within the game. I was ready and I wanted to do it, and we're doing it, and we're here together now. So, Andrew, to answer your question, how do you get into it? Reach out to people. Start emailing. Start having conversations. You'll be surprised. People might pick up the phone and have a conversation. Obviously not right now. Okay, but actually, you know what? Hell, maybe right now. You don't know. Maybe they have less people right now. Reach out. Pick up the phone. Start typing emails 10 resumes a day. Reach out. That's how you do it. It's pure grit. And again, this is me applying my 5 things from playing again. Just you get back up. You keep trying. I did not get my job with the NHL the first time. I got it the second time, and then I moved on after that. Right? So you just don't know. Okay, back to the comments. Been on this for 45 minutes already. I can't believe that. Whew. Okay, Jeremy Kaporin says that I pronounced his name correctly for those of you following the show. Jeremy, thank you. Jeremy, where are you located so I can give you a shout-out at least to the area you're in? Okay, Caitlin Elizabeth says, if you're Sid, it needs to end in an 87. That's true, too. I get it. All right, Mark Polly Pollard says, yes, Mark Polly Pollard, again from Australia, says it's the start of autumn, and yeah, I live in southeast Australia in Victoria, which is funny because I know people in Victoria in Canada, which is legit the opposite side of the world from you, okay? So yeah, Southeast Australia, Victoria, start of autumn. Obviously, for those of you who know, the Southern Hemisphere is opposite seasons because it's the start of spring here. So Mark, hockey season's about to start there. Hockey season's about to start there. We'll see what happens. And we might both be in hockey season at the same time for the first time ever. That might actually happen. We'll see what happens to some of your imports over there with what they do in Europe. All right. Jeff Dwyer, we would have never had rollerblades or Mighty Ducks. That's right. If Wayne Gretzky didn't go to L.A., no Mighty Ducks, no rollerblades, or at least not as popular as they are today. Ray Carcello says, it's like when I was at DC. Some people loved... Oh, DC Comics. Just sorry. Ray, I read there's District of Columbia. Ray says, it's like when I was at DC Comics. Some people loved comics and others could care less. It drove them nuts. Yeah, it's exactly like that, right? You get to the Mecca. You get to the place. It's like, this is it. And you got numb idiots there. I won't use that word, but you got nimrods there that just don't care. It's mind-boggling. It's how could you hire someone that doesn't care? But I don't know. That is. Caitlin says, dude, that's a story. Always take chances. You never know what you'll end up with. That's true. It's good advice, Caitlin. Thanks for giving that to the people. I appreciate it. Mark Pollard, that's very true. It's not what you're doing. It's who it's with. When a mate left one of my old jobs, I instantly didn't want to be there. Ended up finding a job with him again. Yeah, it's who you work with. It's not what you do. What you do is important, but it's not as important as who you're doing it with. All right. One of the great aspects. This is the business podcast of creating my own companies is building my own people around me, the own workforce. I am thankful every day for Travis, for Ray, for Caitlin, for Jeff, for my Matt Eastman, my best friend, who's always behind the scenes that none of you ever see, but he's legit. I can't do this without him, right? And he may or may not be listening. He probably liked this podcast but didn't listen to it, but that's okay. I'm shouting him out here. Matt Eastman, I could not do what I do without Matt Eastman, right? I mean, legit would all fall apart without him and Travis, right? So I was able to surround myself with the type of people I wanted to be around. And doing what I love. I'm very, very blessed and fortunate to have that, and I know it. Jeremy Kaporin, yeah. Austin, Texas. Well, sir. Good to have Texas in the house tonight. I love Texas. I did a public speaking engagement in San Antonio once, and I've been to Austin too for business meetings. Great city, great town, great people. I always enjoy going to Texas. Let's keep going here. It says, walk up to that person that might look familiar. Are you talking about like in terms of finding a job, Caitlin? I just read that here from 2 minutes ago. You never know. Mark Pollard, I wish I lived in Victoria, Canada. Actually, Victoria Island is a secluded island off the coast of Vancouver. I know that because I have 2 very close friends that live out there that I do business with. It is beautiful. It is awesome, but they tell me to get off Victoria Island. You have to pay like $200 to take a ferry to the mainland. It just seems so. It's one of those like I'd love to visit it. I don't know if I'd like to live there forever, but you never know. Mark again says in Australia, hockey is always going here. I play inline most of the time. Is where I live. Is the closest decent ice rink is 3 hours away. I'm always amazed what people will do to get on the ice. When I lived in England, and Jeff Dwyer knows this. I lived in a place called Lakenheath, and I worked in a town called Peterborough, okay, which is in Suffolk. If you drew a straight line from Lakenheath to Peterborough, sorry, they don't say Peterborough over there, it's Peterborough, it would be a 35 minute drive, straight line. But England doesn't work that way. England just doesn't work that way. So it was minimum 55 minutes, and it was never that. It was always an hour and 15 minutes. If they're doing construction, it was 2 hours. And we were doing this 4 freaking days a week. That's how much I love the game. All right? 4 days a week. And Jeff would always drive me. He knew I was exhausted, and he would drive me half the time, or he would at least come with me when I was driving to support the team, to support me. I never forgot that. I don't think I would have made it through those seasons without him doing that. And I've told him that. I think I gave you actually a shout out in my book. That none of that would have happened if you didn't do that, Jeff. So I always appreciate that. Speaking of Jeff, he says, Lee and I know a great guy from Australia that played on the Phantoms as well as the Australian national team too. I think his name, you're talking about Wahib Darj. Let me tell you, actually, Mark, that's a good question. Do you know Wahib Darj? He plays on your national team. I also coached a player named Alice Padlick who played there sometimes. Alice Padlick, a phenomenal hockey player, plays for the Phantoms still. He played there sometimes in the English winter. And he would go. This dude would play all year. He played professional hockey year round. Talk about what I was talking about before with your body not falling apart. I don't know how that dude did that. Amazing. Mark Pollard says, Victoria, it doesn't matter. It's still Canada. I used to feel that way. I'm proud to be an American. I love living in America. But yeah, Canada's a special place for a hockey person. I don't disagree with you on that. Jeff Dwyer says, screw the A14. Yes, and the M1. Any motorway in England. Although I will say to everyone in the world watching this, all of you, roundabouts are a much more efficient way of travel than four-way stop signs. Bar down. There's no debate about this. Mythbusters even did a thing about this. I don't know why we don't have more roundabouts here. Although we can't do it now. My wife and I have had extensive talks about this. If you got rid of all the four-way stop signs for roundabouts in the country, just magically, there'd be so many more accidents because Americans just couldn't handle that. One of the big differences between living in the UK and America is drivers in the UK follow the rules. That's a big deal. There's also cameras everywhere, so you can't break the law. Jeff says he hated that drive. Holy hell is the nicest way to put it. Sounds good. Ray Carcillo, sounds like my commute to LA, an hour each way a day until I started working at home. Yeah, look, LA is famous for its traffic and its smog and its a-holes. So is New York for that matter. But hey, I don't judge. Yeah, the commute in LA, Ray, I did that commute with you one time, and yeah, I don't want to do that again. But I'm proud of you for doing it. Okay, ride a bike. Let's keep going here. Jeff Dwyer says between France League and Aussie League, he did year round. Yeah, he played year round. I mean, it's amazing to me that an athlete could play hockey year round. The punishment your body takes, even if you're healthy, the punishment your body takes is incredible. I think he would play a full season, 2 weeks off, play another full season, 2 weeks off, play another full. I just didn't stop. I think there were times he would take a season off, but man, you'd have to be young to do that. I can barely get through a season now. Caitlin Elizabeth says there's a roundabout near her if she ever wants to drive around one. I don't. That's an English thing for me. I do miss England all the time. Mark Pollard says this is in reference to the player Wahid Darj and Alice Padlick. No, I can't say I do. The only person I know that plays on a national team is Carl Bryan. He taught me how to play inline back when I was a kid. He was a wizard as a player and a goalie. I remember one inline competition. They made him play goalie, and he still scored 2 goals in a game. That's a great story, Mark. You gotta be more description of that. The guy was in net, and he what did he do? Come out of net, or did he score from in the net? Because that's awesome. That's awesome. He must have been bored. Mark also says there's plenty of roundabouts in Australia. Mark, Ray Carcillo, listen to this, has actually been to Australia recently. Took a vacation there within the last 2 years, Ray, if I'm not mistaken. Coffee sip, hold on. But yeah, I would love to visit Australia. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know much about Australia outside the kind of generic things that people know about Australia. And I've always been enamored with it because it's if I'm not mistaken, you're the same size as the intercontinental United States. And it seems like it's like another, not United States, but another size culture like that. So I'd love to see it. I'd also love to see the wildlife there. That's something that fascinates me. Not to make this nerdy, but like because Australia is so secluded from other continents, the wildlife there has evolved in a totally different way than it has here. That's why you have marsupials there with pouches. Again, this is totally useless knowledge, not hockey knowledge, but I find that amazing that the animals evolved differently on that continent, not an island, that continent. It's not a country, that continent, because of that. You know what I mean? So I think that's amazing to me. Let's keep going here. So Ray wants me to remind you all, because I asked him to, that immediately following Puckdop with Lee Elias live on Facebook or this podcast, he will be going live We Love Hockey for Wednesday Night Hockey. For those of you who don't know what Wednesday Night Hockey is, Ray does live play-by-play while playing NHL 20. It is very fun. It is very fast. And let's be honest, you're not watching any other hockey tonight. You're not. This is a chance to watch something live. You don't know the outcome. Quick side story. I was with Travis today. We were picking up a pizza safely. My mother. Okay. And they had an NFL game on. This funny. They had an NFL game on. It was the Niners versus the Rams. And I turned to Travis, and I had the whole pizza place laugh. I said, bet you $5,000 the Niners make it to the Super Bowl and lose. They all laughed. It's a bad joke now, but in the moment it was really funny. And what's funnier is that it's true, and that's how sad things have gotten. So yeah, once again, after tonight, Wednesday Night Hockey, www.twitch.tv/Ray Carcillo. I'll do that again because I butchered it. Twitch.tv/Ray Carcillo. He'll be going live with NHL 20. You can comment to him. You can make fun of him. You can yell at him. You can tell him that he's bad at the game, although he's not. Have fun with that. Okay, Ray, was that good enough as a pitch for you? Go watch Ray Carcillo. He's a professional gamer. Okay. Let's keep going here. Yeah, so Ray says he did go to Melbourne, Mark. He went to Melbourne and Sydney last February, 5 days in each beautiful country. He loved it. I'll have to go down under one day too. Okay, now this is the story Mark was telling us. We're going a little red around here, but we got to hear this. Okay, so he came out to the center line, stole someone's stick, and scored. Everyone in the arena went nuts. That's a story. That's a story. That's like when Ron Hextall scored a goal, or when he came out and broke a guy's ankle. Either way, you win with that one. Got to be careful of the drop bears. Is that one of the animals out there? I'm going to guess that's one of the animals. Ray says the Taronga, am I saying that right? Taronga Zoo in Sydney is amazing. This is turning into a Visit Australia ad, but that's okay. And Jeff says teaching Americans how to drive on roundabouts is like teaching Brits how big American geography is. Yeah, so what he's referring to is, I always said this, people in America don't know how small the United Kingdom is, and people in the United Kingdom don't understand how big the United States is, or as we say about the UK, how many countries are in this country? 4. Okay? Ray, Ray says that was adequate. Make sure you go watch Ray after this. Jody Oberg. We've been talking about Victoria, man. Did you just come on? Tell me you just came on. Jody, Mark Pollard, who's commenting here, lives in Victoria, Australia, and we were just talking about Victoria Island, where you live. Mark, this is the person I was just talking about. Jody Oberg, dear friend of mine, business acquaintance of mine, lives on Victoria Island. You guys are literally half the world away from each other. Jordy also says he wants Ray to do his voiceover in life. You don't like my voice, Jordy? You don't like my voice? Okay. You know what? I take it back. Okay, so Jordy did hear everything. Now my life is complete. And we're at an hour, just like that. You have 1 minute to type any other questions or comments that you want to type before I close this out. I do want to thank you all once again for spending this hour with me. Vancouver Island in Victoria. Yeah, sorry, Jordy, okay? I appreciate you and Vancouver Island. now I get them going. I appreciate all of you taking your time here to listen to this. Or again, if you're watching this on replay or on the podcast, listening on the podcast on Apple or SoundCloud, just want to wish you, your family, your friends, all of you the best during this time. As always, I know things are a little bit different right now. This is definitely the new reality. This too shall pass, right? And we just got to stick together one day at a time, the moments, try and enjoy it. Find things like this that make you feel good, share them with each other. Do whatever you got to do to make your day better, and keep striving forward, okay? I really mean this, and I want to thank you, because if you didn't watch this, if you didn't allow me to do this, I wouldn't be doing this right now. And I do love this. This is very much therapeutic for me as well. So for all those of you listening, I want to thank you once again for listening. I just got one here. It's from Mark Pollard. It says, #hockey never stops. Absolutely true. He's referring also to something we're doing on Hockey Wraparound, one of my businesses. We're giving away a wraparound every single day to anyone who just submits. We're picking one a day, but one winner a day. Anyone to get submits a video of them playing hockey in any way right now is submitted into the contest. And actually, it's a little tease for you guys. Nobody knows this, but other companies have been sending us prizes to give away as well. So that's actually going to expand to be just more than hockey wraparounds. But that was our way of letting the audience know, hey, listen, we can still keep the game going, even though we can't be on the ice right now. So, Mark, thanks for saying that. I actually forgot to do that. I probably should do that. Hockey never stops. #hockey never stops. Check out Hockey Wraparound, hockeywraparound.com. if you want to find out more on that. This is not business. It's not salesy. It's very much just a giveaway, and anyone that loves hockey can jump in. Jeff says, I can't wait till next week. Well, Jeff, I will end the episode on that because I can't wait till next week. I want to thank you all once again for joining me. This is Lee Elias with We Live Hockey, Elimination Cafe, or Hockey Wraparound if you're watching, which is a good reason I just pumped that again. You guys have a great night, great Wednesday, great rest of your week. Feel free to send me questions or comments after the episode or topics you want me to talk about next week, and we'll see you next time on Puckdop Live. This is like where the Jeopardy music plays and the credits roll, but I don't have any Jeopardy music or rolls, so I'm just going to end it. You guys have a good night.